Welcome back. As I'm sure you could tell, today we're making pizza. So let's roll the credits and get right down to it. We'll be needing 1,000 grams of all-purpose flour, 3 grams of yeast, 26 grams of salt, and 700 grams of water that's around 95 degrees. Now add the salt to the water and swish it around until it dissolves. Then you can stir in the yeast and let that rest for about a minute. Alright, now it's time for us to add our liquid into the flour. And we'll just go in and start stirring with our hands. Make sure you washed your hands before you started this process. And just keep on stirring until all of the flour is hydrated. Be sure to get every nook and cranny. After all of the flour is hydrated, cover it and let it rest for 20 minutes. The 20 minutes have passed, so now I'm going to fold the dough. I will do that by reaching underneath, pulling it, and folding it over the top of itself. Doing this with wet hands will help it from sticking. After going around a few times, I'm going to cut it into sections using my fingers. Then I'll repeat this process several times. You see I'm just pinching along the whole thing, and then folding it over itself into a little ball. Now that everything's come together nicely, I'm going to use a spatula to clean up the sides. And then I'll cover it and wait about 2 hours until the next step. Alright, the 2 hours have passed and things are looking good. It's risen just a little bit and we're going to give it a fold. This is a process similar to the one before, where you grab from underneath and stretch it out and fold it over the top of itself. Do this with floured hands. After giving it several folds, I'm going to generously flour the work surface and then turn the dough out onto it. And just like I did in the container, I'm going to continue to pull and fold it over itself. Until it comes into a nice ball shape. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then put it into a well-oiled container. Then I'm going to give it a nice spritz with olive oil and then cover it for 2 hours. The 2 hours have passed and things are looking good. It is time to form the dough balls. Now I'm going to put some flour around the perimeter of the container. This will help it not stick as much. Then I'll reach underneath to loosen everything up. And turn the dough out onto a floured work surface. Now I'll stretch the dough out to about 1.5 by 2 feet. And we're going to use a dough knife to cut this into 6 equal pieces. I'm using some flour to mark my cuts. This will also make it cut through easier and not stick as much. I'm just eyeballing these cuts, but if you wanted them all exactly the same size, you could get a food scale and portion them that way. Now before you start forming the dough balls, you're going to want to have a baking sheet that is well oiled next to you so you could put the dough balls on that. To form the dough balls, grab a piece of dough and then grab the outer edge and bring it to the center, and then continue around the perimeter of the dough. Once you've gone around once, do it again. As you go around, you'll notice the skin of the dough getting tighter and tighter. After I've gone around several times, I'm going to put the dough ball in my hand and start using my fingers to pull the dough tighter to the bottom. And then after you're done rolling, you want to place that seam side down on your baking sheet. Here you can see it from a different angle. You see I just fold the edges into the middle and go around the perimeter. and just continue around in that same manner. And then I put it in my hands, start pulling everything to the bottom. Just give it a nice gentle tug. If you've tried these techniques and your dough is still too loose, what you can do is place your dough on the workbench and then grab a dough knife and slide it underneath and pull it towards you. As you pull it towards you, it tightens the skin more. When you're doing this technique, you don't want too much flour on the table. You actually want it to stick just a little bit. And we have completed the dough balls. Now we're just going to oil these dough balls and put some saran wrap over them. And into the fridge they go for 24 hours. An hour before we bake the pizza, we're going to put the pizza stone on the top rack of the oven and preheat the oven to 550 degrees Fahrenheit. While we wait for that to preheat, let's make the sauce. You're going to need a teaspoon of oregano, a half a teaspoon of chili flakes, 1 teaspoon of sea salt, and about 30 ounces of whole peeled tomatoes. Then I'm going to use an immersion blender to blend it all up. While I was blending, I added 2 cloves of garlic and about a teaspoon of fresh cracked black pepper. Then I'll cap that up and put it in the fridge. The oven has been preheating for about 30 minutes, so now I'm going to take the dough out of the fridge so it's easier to work with. For the last 10 minutes while you're preheating the oven, turn the broiler on high so it really gets that pizza stone hot. And the time has finally arrived for us to start assembling our pizza. I'm going to start by spreading some semolina over my pizza peel. That's going to make it not stick when we put it in the oven. Now to stretch the dough, coat both sides in flour, and then with your fingers and fists, start going around the circumference of the dough. Gravity is going to help stretch it out a little bit. And then I'm going to put it down on the pizza peel and straighten it out from there. I'm just going to be making a simple pepperoni pizza with red sauce, mozzarella, and pepperoni. And away we go with the sauce. You want to put it right down the middle and then kind of spiral it out to the edges. But don't go all the way out to the edges because you still want a little crust. Don't go too crazy with the sauce because then when it cooks it might be a little soggy in the middle, and we don't want that. It will also help prevent all of the toppings from sliding off on the first bite. And then I'll go into the mozzarella cheese and give it a nice even layer across the whole thing. Try to resist from loading it up with too many toppings. I know it's hard. And now I'll just give it a nice even spread of pepperoni. And before we put this in the oven, you're going to want to give the pizza peel a shake to make sure it doesn't stick. And be sure to set the oven back to 550 degrees Fahrenheit. You don't want it to be on broil when you're cooking pizza. Ooh, look at that rise. My pizza took about 10 to 15 minutes. You know it's done when it's a little bit darker than golden brown. That looks good enough to eat. But first we have to let it cool for 5 minutes before we can cut it. And while we wait, I'll make another pizza. This time with some good old spicy jalapenos on top. And of course pepperoni too. I couldn't leave that out. And I'll do same as before, just kind of rotate this in my hands, stretching at the edges, letting gravity do some of the work. And then I'll put it down on the peel and do the rest of the stretching there. If you didn't take this out of the fridge beforehand to warm up a little bit, it's going to be a lot harder to work with. Oh yeah, look at that sauce. And be sure to go out to the edges. And then I'll dig it in that mozzarella. And just evenly spread this around as I did before. Oh yeah, massage it in there. You want to still be seeing a little bit of sauce. And then I'll use my Quicksilver technique to put on the pepperoni. I'll just do a moderate spreading of jalapenos around. Nothing too crazy. And then I'll put a little bit more cheese on top just to kind of lock on those toppings so they don't go sliding around or anything. Alright, that's looking good, so it's time for this to go into the oven. And like I mentioned before, give your pizza peel a good shake just to make sure nothing's sticking. Ooh, and doesn't that look good? Look at the steam coming off of it. While that one cools, let's cut the first one. Let's take a look from a different angle. Now let me pick up a slice and show you how it looks. Oh yeah. It's good structure, not too droopy, just right. And of course I have to taste it. Now that's a 10. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe to the channel. And also leave me a comment and tell me what type of video you want to see next time. Until then, this is Jess with Digital Skills signing out.